Good morning. I'm Chief Justice Deborah Stevens of the Washington State Supreme Court, and we are gathered here this morning in the beautiful Temple of Justice in order to receive an important announcement. As some of you may know, under our state constitutional organization, when a justice leaves the court prior to the expiration of their term, the governor has the opportunity to fill that vacancy. And the governor's appointee stands for retention election, and then we hope runs for re-election to the office when that time comes. So earlier this year, May announced that she would be retiring from the Supreme Court at the end of this year. That follows her brilliant tenure on this court since the spring of 2014. Following 14 years as a Superior Court judge in King County. So really 25 years of judicial excellence. And I just want to take a moment and give everyone in this courtroom the opportunity to thank Justice Yu for her service. I also want to thank the members of the Supreme Court, my colleagues, for joining this morning. I want to note one absence and share with you that Justice Salman Jia, our newest justice, wishes he could be here today, but he is serving his civic duty as a juror in Pierce County, and he is in jury service this morning. But I'm happy to be joined, and I'll just introduce to you the members of the court, Justice G. Helen Whitener, Justice Stephen Gonzalez, Associate Chief Justice Charles Johnson, Justice Barbara Madsen, Justice Cheryl Gordon-MacLeod, and Justice Raquel Montoya-Lewis. The last thing I'll say, and I want to turn it over to the governor to make the announcement, is that this newest member of our court will be the 100th justice to serve in the history of the Washington State Supreme Court. And just this information comes to me from our resident historian, Justice Charles Johnson, who was the 80th justice to join the court. So that just gives you a sense of the arc of this historic moment this morning. And with that, I'll step out of the way and turn it over to Governor Bob Ferguson.
Thank you so much, Chief Justice Stevens, and thanks to all the members of this court. We so appreciate, on behalf of the people of the state of Washington, we thank you for your service. Service comes in many forms. Your service is especially important. And so just on behalf of the people of the state of Washington, we so appreciate all that you do for our state. Thank you very much. I also do, of course, want to take a moment to give a special thank you, as Justice Stevens just did, for Justice Yu. I've had the chance to know you for quite some time, and, she's been, Chief Justice Stevens, you're talking about history and the 100th justice, but I think it's fair to say that Justice Yu is a historical figure in our state. There's no two ways around that. She's a trailblazer in many, many ways. She's just had a profound impact on our state. And also, one thing I just will say, Justice Yu, is I know something that you have focused on. I've spoken to many, many attorneys, youngish attorneys, who refer to you as a mentor. And that's like, in some ways, the greatest compliment of all, right? That she's an incredibly busy person, and yet I've heard from many, many people who refer to you as their mentor. So I'm not sure how many folks can have to have that role, but you seem to find the time for it. So one more round of applause, please, for Justice Yu. Thank you. So Justice Yu, of course, leaves a big legacy and very big shoes to fill on this court. And I was certainly mindful of that on my role in this process, which is to make a selection for an individual to fill those very big shoes. And after an extensive and thorough process, I'm confident that we have the right person for this very important job. And so I'm very pleased to announce that Colleen Melody will be our next Washington State Supreme Court Justice. Now, I know Colleen very well. And by the way, I see a lot of familiar faces in the audience today, which is a real joy. And I see a lot of familiar faces because, of course, Colleen serves and has served as the division chief for the Wing Luke Civil Rights Division in the Office of Attorney General. So I had the chance to work very, very closely with her for a very long period of time. So I will try in a few minutes to summarize, my observations of Colleen during that time and why I'm appointing her to this position. Anyone who has had any interaction with Colleen in a legal setting would all agree that she has a brilliant legal mind. There's just no doubt about that. She is, in my view, also a creative problem solver and a fearless defender of our democracy. She grew up in Spokane, Washington, in a family of public servants. Her dad was an educator in Spokane public schools. Her mom worked for the Department of Health, and her sister is a bank regulator. After graduating from Ferris High School, Colleen attended the University of Washington for both her undergraduate education and law school. At the University of Washington Law School, she was a Gates Public Service Scholar. That sense of public service came throughout her life. That's always been a focus for her. The University of Washington is one of our country's finest law schools. It's difficult to get into, I know, because I did not get into it myself. I tried, and they did not take me. But she got in, and not only did she get in, she finished first in her class at the University of Washington Law School. I first met Colleen in 2014 when she applied for a new position. I was creating a new civil rights division in our office. Our office did not do civil rights work directly on behalf of the people, and I wanted to create a civil rights division. So I realized how important that first appointment was going to be to really set the trajectory for what I hope would be a civil rights division that would serve the people of our state in a significant way. And the person to lead that, obviously that's a big job and an important job. And so I met Colleen. I was in Washington, D.C., and at that time she was working for the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division as part of their honors program. And fortunately, she agreed to come back home to Washington State and build our state's brand new civil rights division, literally from the ground up. Over the next decade, Colleen helped establish that division into what can only be described as a national powerhouse for standing up for the rights of all Washingtonians, and, as we've seen over the years, for many Americans as well. Today in that division, there are 35 attorneys, investigators, and professional staff. That team has grown dramatically over the course of that decade, all under the leadership of Colleen. It is, by any fair measure, the best civil rights division in any office of the Attorney General anywhere in the United States. As I mentioned before, in my time as we have a large office in the Office of Attorney General, and as Attorney General, you don't get the ability to work, equally closely with every attorney. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of attorneys. But as the head of the Civil Rights Division, I had the real joy to work extremely closely with Colleen. That division worked on very significant litigation. And as you might imagine, we spent a lot of time talking about those cases, deciding how to proceed in those cases, strategizing about those cases. We spent a lot of time together. And as a result of her work, she has led on some of the most consequential cases, speaking of history again, truly in the history of our state. So for example, she helped lead our state's successful challenge of President Trump's first travel ban in 2017. As you might recall, Washington State was the first state to challenge President Trump in court in 2017 and the first state to defeat him in court. And that was due in large part to Colleen and her leadership and the hard work of the Civil Rights Division. Earlier this year, she won the first restraining order against the second Trump administration. Again, the first state to take on the Trump administration and the first state to defeat the Trump administration. That was the birthright citizenship case, protecting the constitutional rights of everyone born in this country. Her work on the litigation to protect Dreamers led to a 2018 court order that is still protecting Dreamers all across our country today, including nearly 20,000 Dreamers here in Washington State, which allows them to pursue an education, start a business, get jobs, and build families in what for many of them is the only home they have ever known. There are also, it's fair to say, many, many cases that never made a headline, but impacted Washingtonians in deeply personal ways, truly. And I had the real joy of being with Colleen in the room with people impacted by those cases. I had the, and I'm sorry I'm a little emotional, but these were emotional meetings where we are meeting with people, truly who have been harmed by outrageous conduct. And these are individuals who do not always have a strong voice in our judicial system, to put it mildly. And Colleen has always been there for them. And I would see her not just as a lawyer, but as a human being interacting with people, which I admire greatly. Nobody who has worked with Colleen or faced her in court will be surprised by today's announcement. Her colleagues praise her integrity, her service mindset, her skills as a consensus builder, her deep legal knowledge, and her dedication to justice and equality. Solicitor General Noah Purcell called Colleen, quote, a world-class legal talent who we would be lucky to have on the bench. Deputy Attorney General Todd Bowers said the following, quote, Colleen Melody is the best attorney I have worked with in my 33 years as a practicing attorney. Her knowledge of the law is comprehensive. She has dedicated her entire career to pursuing justice for the poorest and most marginalized in our society. She will make an excellent justice. I also want to take a moment to thank Colleen's family, who's here today, especially her husband, Zach. Public service, as everybody here certainly understands, and many, many folks in this room understand, that's a shared sacrifice with one's family, to be sure. And so a special thank you to her family and to Zach for sharing this journey with Colleen. I think that's true for anyone. I think it's fair to say that's especially true for Colleen, who pours her heart into her work. Her dedication is, as far as I can tell, has no limits. And I just will also add that, as talented as a lawyer as she is, Colleen, your work rate, my goodness. I mean, the amount of work that this individual is able to produce at a shockingly high level, year after year after year, is impressive to say the least. Lastly, what I'll just will say is, as an Attorney General, obviously you worry about a lot of things. There's thousands of legal matters going on at any one time. I would say this to Shane, my chief deputy, a lot when we were working together in the AG's office. I worried about a lot of things. I never once, for a moment, worried about how any case in the Civil Rights Division was being litigated. I never had to worry about that. Like, I knew with Colleen's leadership and her incredible team that she put together, that work would be first rate every time, without exception. And that is in some ways the greatest compliment to you, your leadership, your legal skills, your ability to bring a team together and to advocate for the people of our state. So it's my privilege to appoint Colleen Melody to the Washington State Supreme Court. And please join me in congratulating her and inviting her to say a few words.
So thank you, Governor Ferguson, both for sort of the honor of being selected, but also for the opportunity to serve the state that we both love. Thank you to Chief Justice Stevens for your words of welcome, and to all the justices who are able to be here. So in preparing for maybe seeking this appointment, I asked to meet with them so that I could hear from them about their court, their work, their views, and their reflections. And every single one of them was willing to meet with me and generously share their time and kind of their wisdom. And I just think that that speaks so highly for all of you. And I'd like to thank you for that. So you are a path-breaking lawyer and jurist in many ways. But one of the things that everyone says, and the governor said it, is just how much of a role model you are for I wrote young lawyers, he said young lawyers, and I thought, I'm not that young of a lawyer anymore. So for many lawyers, just in sort of your legal craft, but also your dedication to improving our system of justice, just personally, on a personal level, I so admire your work ethic and the tireless way that you keep your eye on sort of access to justice as the North Star that we need to improve. You are the real deal. And you walk the walk as a public servant, and I would like to thank you for your example. I'd like to also acknowledge my family and thank them. Many family and close friends are either here in the room or watching online, in particular my parents, Brian and Patty Melody. my sister Shannon, my only sibling who is here, and my husband Zach, and our two daughters Cecilia and Rosie, who are supposed to be in second grade and kindergarten this morning. But days like this don't happen every day, and so I thought it might be okay if they join me here in the room. So as the governor said, I grew up in Spokane and then moved to Seattle to attend the University of Washington. And so really I grew up in two different communities. I'm the product of two different communities on either side of the state, but that both cared for me and fed me and taught me well. I had excellent teachers, and I was encouraged by people who helped raise me to work hard and to give back. And so I truly love Washington, and I'm proud to serve it. And I also just love the law. I love its promise of justice for all, and I was trained as a civil rights lawyer in Washington, D.C. by incredibly dedicated public servants, people who are career civil rights champions. And then for the next 11 years, I've been back home in Washington running a statewide civil rights practice at the Attorney General's office, where for all that time, our goal has been in every corner of the state to level the playing field, whether it be in employment or housing, in government services, in education and healthcare, and so much more. And it's such a privilege to do that work with my colleagues, where part of our role is to just prop open the door to the courthouse a little bit, to make it so that everyday Washingtonians have a better chance to walk through that door and seek justice in court. And I've been doing that work for over a decade with a team of dedicated and extremely skilled investigators, attorneys, and professional staff at the Civil Rights Division of the Attorney General's office, along with others in the office. It's a truly wonderful place to work. And as I wrote to Governor Ferguson in my application materials, for all of my career experiences, I feel most fortunate for my daily ability, my daily collaboration with my Civil Rights Division colleagues. They work tirelessly every day to protect and uphold the dignity of their neighbors. And it's work that I will miss doing alongside them. And so even though I love my current work, I applied for this position because state courts are incredibly important, and they have never been more important than they are right now. Many of you know that more than 90% of all legal cases are resolved in state court rather than federal courts. And so even though the US Supreme Court and federal courts are often in the news, state courts are actually the place where most of us who are able to access justice go to seek it. And so now, at a time when public polling tells us that the credibility of courts as institutions is declining, and when the rule of law seems more fragile than it has to me at any point during my lifetime, it seemed important to me that people who are people of goodwill, who are willing to work hard, and who have deep faith in the courts as cornerstones of democracy, that those people be willing to raise their hands and serve, to walk the walk as you have done. And so that's what I'm going to try to do in this role, to judge cases fairly, impartially, with compassion, and to work with my judicial branch colleagues, court staff, the bar, and communities across Washington state to continue to ensure that Washington's courts are independent, excellent, and models of access, because Washington state deserves that. And I want to be part of that work with all of you. Thank you.
On behalf of the court, I want to welcome you. Very inspiring words. And I think we all feel the privilege and the responsibility of serving on the state Supreme Court. We have the honor of being known by the title of justice, and we work every day to help bring justice and access to justice to all the people of Washington. And it is clear that that commitment is strong in you, and we're happy to welcome you to the court. What we'd love to do now is get a picture with the entire court, and then my understanding is that there will be time for some questions, and then the justices will excuse ourselves to allow that to happen. So congratulations again, and welcome.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Okay. So we're happy to, and Colleen, of course, we're happy to answer any questions that folks here might have. Yes. I couldn't quite, I'm sorry, my apologies. Sure, I'll repeat the question so folks can hear it. So the question was an important one. What were some of the characteristics I was looking for in a justice? So, a couple of thoughts I'll say is, obviously I'm an attorney, right? And so I have thoughts about that, and for me, there's many aspects that go into a good judge or justice. So the qualities I'll express are a non-exclusive list for obvious reasons in the interest of time, right? But what I would say, and especially for, I think, the state Supreme Court, which has a special role in our system for obvious reasons, I think it's fair to say that not any particular order of importance, but some qualities that I was looking for would certainly include, number one, an individual who has the intellectual capacity to handle the job. It's not an easy job. The range of cases is expansive. The topics are far-ranging. And so someone who has that bandwidth to handle that is obviously a basic requirement. I think someone that's especially important to me, and I alluded to this a little bit in talking to Colleen, was, I think it's important for judges and justices to, every legal matter, no matter how big or small, is deeply impactful to the individuals who are appearing before the court. And, I think that it's important for judges and justices to be very mindful of that. And I could believe that it'd be relatively easy the more you have a robe and the more you are sitting in a certain position to maybe, right, to lose sight of that. I'm very confident that would never happen to Colleen Melody. Her work, I refer to, being in meetings with her, with individuals impacted by our litigation, and, had a chance to see, her perspective on that. And, that had a deep impact on me. So I think that's especially important, I think, for the position. Number three, part of being on a court like the Supreme Court, where you're one of 9, is, and I think I referred to this in my comments, I think I was quoting Noah Purcell, if I remember correctly, is you have to be able to build coalitions, right? You need 5 votes for an opinion. And I think the best justices, they're not just super smart, they're not just brilliant lawyers, they're not just great writers, but they have an ability to form coalitions, to bring people together, to persuade, to do that. It's not easy. You've got 9 strong-willed individuals, I suspect, who all have their ideas about a case. And I specifically mentioned that quote, I think it was from Noah, if I recall correctly, about being, I think it was a consensus builder was the phrase he used. I hope I remember that correctly, because I think that is very important, especially for being a justice on the state Supreme Court. Also, what I would add is, the job obviously entails being here, hearing cases and deciding cases, obviously, right? But the job is far more than that. You interact with the court system as a whole. You talk about the court. You have an educational role that's important for the people of the state. And I think Colleen is very committed to that, and I think is uniquely positioned to play a key role in, you talked at some length about the importance of state courts, which is something she and I have talked about many, many times over the years, as you might imagine. And I think her keen interest in that subject, especially where we are today in our society, is, for the reasons really she said better than I'm saying right now, I think is especially important, to be sure. There's a lot of things obviously you look for in a judge. So again, that's a non-exclusive list. But I would say that, Colleen is, she's a unique talent, and I think, she's going to bring a lot to this bench. It's a talented bench to start with, but I'm very confident she will be a very influential member of this court for a lot of reasons. Yeah, Sherry.
Yeah, I mean, my role in the executive branch has always been to enforce the laws as passed by the legislature, right? And so now I'm moving to the judicial branch, where the job is to apply the laws as passed by the legislature or other lawmakers, right? Whether it be the Constitution or regulations. And so it's certainly a very different role, and it's a more institutional role. So, as an advocate, you're kind of working on the case in front of you. And as a judge, especially on the state's highest court, I think you're thinking long-term about how your decisions are going to impact both kind of the rule of law and the structure of legal doctrines, but also people beyond the cases that are directly in front of you. So it is a different task, and it's one that I'll need to sort of change in order to sort of embrace this role as both hearing the cases in front of you, but thinking about the impacts down the road because it's an appellate bench. Well, I mean, the job of the judge is to apply the intent of the law that's been passed, whether it's a legislative provision, a constitutional provision. Some of the laws in Washington are passed directly by the people, right? And so the job is to apply and give effect to the intent of those lawmakers. Yeah. Yeah, I've been thinking about that I haven't had a job interview with anybody else for like for 12 years, and maybe at some point I should interview with someone else. I think that the toughest question this time was, why do you want to leave the Civil Rights Division? There's nothing that's pushing me out of that role. There's nothing that I like better than getting up every day and going to work at that job with those colleagues. And so I think the hardest question throughout this process, regardless of who was asking it, was, why would you consider leaving this job that you love? You know what? I never dreamt of being a judge. To me, it's been about sort of watching, falling in love with state courts in coming back to Washington State. Because when I was at the U.S. Department of Justice, 100% of our work was in federal courts. There was no state court practice. And so when I came back to start the Civil Rights Division here, working with juries in Washington State, working in courthouses that are geographically in 39 counties, plus, many of the larger counties have more than one courthouse, and getting to travel to all those places and apply the law with the local elected jurists and the sort of people in those communities. It was really only then that I started thinking about state court service. But yeah, I mean, we have no current cases in front of the court now, but the Code of Judicial Conduct has pretty clear rules about when you need to recuse, and I'll follow those. If I'm personally and substantially involved in cases that my colleagues are litigating right now in the Civil Rights Division, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to hear any kind of appeal related to those personal and substantial involvement cases.
You guys good? Good. thoughts, Colleen?
No, I think thanks everyone for coming to see this many friendly faces and just people who have been such supporters for so long, and that you came down to Olympia in the rain. I appreciate it. Thank you to the members of the Attorney General's office and the Governor's office who have supported me here, and it's lovely to see you today. Thanks for coming.
And if I, And if I can just add a couple of thoughts. So if folks want to take a few photographs here, it'd be great. Obviously the family, the Civil Rights Division, I wouldn't mind jumping in that photograph as well, if that's okay. I mentioned earlier, I think, well, Colleen and I think both mentioned earlier that, Justice Yu leaving left big shoes to fill for this position. It is more than fair to say that, for Nick, filling this position, it's big shoes to fill in the Civil Rights Division. They've only known one leader, right? In a decade, they've only known one leader, and that's Colleen. And, to take, really to take an idea, which is what we had in 2014, right? We had an idea, and to take it where it is today, which truly, the lives impacted by the work of that division, not just here in Washington State, but across the country, it's profound. And, I've received lots of emails and letters from people literally, around the country because of the work of the Civil Rights Division that she grew and built. And so, honestly, it was a privilege to watch that over those 10 years. And that is not easy to do. And the consistency of that work at an extremely high level. I mean, that's what I really want to emphasize is, at extremely high level. I've been around lawyers my whole life, basically, right? And that team, truly is exceptional. And, I think anytime you have a team that operates at that level, you have to look at the leader of the division, the leader of that group, who provides the inspiration, and who sets the tone, and that certainly has been you. So one more time, a round of applause for Colleen Melody. Congratulations. Congratulations. And feel free to come if you want. Let's do it. All right.